Question 2. Does your ability to trust depend on your background and upbringing?
I think so. Not depend on, but it heavily influences it because people bring trauma to their relationships,
Yeah.
and the first relationship you see is the one in your household, and then if you don't have a
I.e. your
relationship,
parents.
yeah, and if you don't have a relationship in your household, or if you come from a single parent household, you're gleaning from maybe aunties, uncles, like you're taking in all this information,
Cleaning from like TV shows,
TV,
films,
maybe your
movies, school.
environment. But upbringing is critical because even the desire to marry comes in a large part as well from, or the desire not to marry can come from seeing a positive relationship in your household or seeing a negative relationship in your household.
True.
And even if you had a negative relationship in your household, you might have the motivation to say, you know what, when I grow up, I'm going to do it a certain way.
True.
I'm going to do the work. I want my kids to grow up in a certain type of household that I didn't get to grow up in. Or it can go the other way, where you're like, I don't want anything to do with this institution whatsoever. And you bring that to relationships and say, this is what my dad did, or this is what my mom did, or this is the type of relationship they had. So therefore, I don't want to commit. I don't want to, get involved in that. But there comes a point that if you choose to be in a serious relationship, you have to do a certain amount of internal work. Actually, the internal work is probably always ongoing because you never reach, the apex of self-actualization. It's always an ongoing journey. So I think in a marriage, you cannot say it depends on it. If you've got trauma, you have to, like, I'm a big Charlemagne the God fan. And he always says, like, you've got to deal with your trauma before it deals with you. And that's super important because in every situation, you're going to be faced with multiple situations in a marriage, and we're very, very early on. So as I always say, this is not advice. This is just my opinion. Yeah, like, you're going to bring that way of dealing with things, that vantage point that may be toxic, but it's not good enough to say, you know what, this is what I know, this is how I am. You have to kind of be committed to evolving.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Completely agree. Background definitely impacts your ability to trust. I think a lot of the time it comes from like parents. I feel like the woman's a lot of time affected by the dad and how the dad moves. I know both, actually both, and the guy as well. Even though the guy might seem like less like he's conscious of it or so forth, but they're both affected. And I think what happens is you grow up and you almost template relationships by what you've seen, and what you've seen, the mirror of you. So let's say for me, my dad, who cheat her mum, do in the relationship and then template accordingly. And relationships can form like that. And I think it takes a journey to understand, okay, this might not be the best orientation, or it might be the best orientation depending on what you've seen growing up and so forth. So definitely, I think it impacts your ability to trust. Seen people, I met people who've had cheeky relationships with their parents or like just upbringing and so forth, and it means they just really can't trust. Like they can't get over like potentially like insecurities or see the person in front of them for who they are. Sometimes the other person can have like a bit of a savior complex because of who they've seen or what they've seen in their relationships back at home, and there's loads of things that stem from that. So I think it kind of encourages or kind of puts focus on the power of a healthy relationship at home, and modeling that for children, and then also doing the work on yourself and being ready to like kind of face uncomfortable things, uncomfortable situations, and grow as a result of that. Like I'm big on like that personal growth piece and that emotional growth piece, and like doing the work within yourself to be, I don't say your highest self, but the best version of you. the version that like has sought and worked through traumas, worked through this, worked through that, and come out the other side and is like seeking to continue to be the best version of himself. Like, yeah, I really, really, really resonate with that. So yeah, I definitely think background impacts it.